All right, good evening, everybody. At this time, if you're able to rise, please do so for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, at this time, we will open up the first hearing and privilege of the floor. Remind everybody that the first hearing and privilege is 30 minutes. If you wish to address the board, please just go to the podium, name, address, and adhere to our 5-minute policy. All right, so we'll close the first hearing and privilege of the floor. Remind everybody that we do have one towards the end of the meeting. And at this time, I will turn it over to our friends from Chartwells that are here to give us our annual report. So the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Can you see your notes?
I can. It's big.
Good.
Well, I would like to just thank everyone for having us this evening. This is a brief overview of the child nutrition program within the Scotia-Glenville School District. I'm Jessie Fenix, and this is my colleague Jim Bigley from H&B Consultants. We help oversee the program as a whole. So this 24-25 school year, the past school year that just concluded, is the first year of the entire district being enrolled in the Community Eligibility Provision, which is shortened to CEP. This is something that you participated in for the most of the district last school year, the 23-24 school year, but it allows you to offer one breakfast and one lunch free of charge to every student enrolled in the district, and then those funds are covered by reimbursement rates as a collection of state and federal funding. You were participating last school year in all of your schools except for the Glen elementary schools, Glen Warden and Glendale. This program will continue into the 25-26 school year, ensuring that meals are again available to all of your students, irregardless of household income applications or other ways that they had generated and qualified for free meals in the past. This is also something that we have uncertainties about how going forward in the future, how long that program will continue, but as of right now, we are operating in the mindset that it is a 4-year program or enrollment period with one available grace year at the end of that. So with a lot of changes at the federal government standards going on right now, we can't guarantee that that program will be able to be served out in completion, but in preparation of trying to put ourselves in as advantageous a position as possible, we have renewed that eligibility period for this upcoming 25-26 school year, so that timeline restarts and you have 4 years of eligibility that you are eligible for right now, again, subject to federal government changing. We also extended the contract with Chartwells for the 25-26 school year. It's an annual renewal, so you bid the contract, and then when you have an option to renew once every 4 years, and then you have to rebid after that 5th year of service. So this renewal that you just completed would mark the 3rd renewal, meaning you are eligible for one final renewal for the 26-27 school year, and then you'd have to rebid in the spring of 2027. We also like to track the participation within the district. It keeps us up to date on how many students are eating, which is key to our program. We like to look at the participation from year to year, as well as a month-to-month basis. I have some graphs in the upcoming slides, but you will see that the overall breakfast meals have increased by over 5% from the 23-24 school year to the 25-26 school year. I also compared from December 2023 to June 2024, as I think that's a more apples to apples comparison, excuse the pun, but that is when your meals were free within the district to all students. At lunch, your participation also increased by an average of almost 9% from the 2 years, with almost a 6% increase from that free to free time period. These increases also support a conclusion that just because the meals are free, obviously that strongly impacts participation, but in order to attract new customers and retain customers, you have to have a staple of quality within your program that students come to expect, because simply offering free meals doesn't ensure that students are going to participate. A lot of times, if the quality isn't there, you see a student come through the line once and then get turned off by whatever they tasted. So seeing those increases still track throughout the free periods really is encouraging as a threshold of the program. So this is our breakfast graph. I like to look at each school individually and then compare the variance from the previous school year. Sorry, I should clarify. ADP stands for average daily participation. So looking at this graph, your high school served an average of 155 breakfast meals daily from September to June of last school year. And then this most recent school year, that increased to 177 meals per day. So you can see all of the schools individually broken down there. And then we also like to keep an eye on the percentage of increase. So if you increase 50 meals, but you go from 50 to 100, that's a much more notable increase than if you were serving 500 meals, then you added 50 as an increase the previous year. So the highlighted schools are the ones that we see marked improvement. That's happens to be the greatest variance as well as the greatest percentage of increase, and that would be Sagandaga and Glendale elementary schools. We did see a bit of a drop at the middle school when compared to last year to this year. Something that is worth noting, and I think an area to improve our ADP percentages. The middle school serves what I would call a hybrid style service, where we have 7th and 8th graders going through the serving area to behind us, and then the 6th graders are served off of a collapsible folding table in front of the auditorium. But that unfortunately limits the variety of warm entrees that we can offer the 6th graders with a safe temperature holding. So one of the ways that we could possibly explore improving the program would be to purchase a mobile breakfast cart that has the capability of keeping warm entrees in a safe holding temperature. Might be considered a hefty investment by some, but if that's the manner that's going to go forward long term, a way to improve the quality. Again, the 6th graders are being offered a wide variety. They have more than 5 choices every day, but some of the warm options are limited to them. And then at lunch, we have a strong increase at every single building. I always comment that Glendale is doing so great at breakfast and lunch, and it's like curious that that is the school because they run one staff member there by herself, and she is very, very efficient with how she moves through her kitchen. So it's very impressive that the building that consistently has the least staffing is a notable improvement across the board at breakfast and lunch. And then looking at the financial standings, we also keep an eye on this on a monthly basis just to make sure that everything is operating smoothly. Chartwell's is contractually required to ensure a yearly return of at least $40,000, and that is to cover internal C-fund expenses. Chartwell's has exceeded this return every year that they have been in operation through this current contract, and we do not see any reason to not have that continue. This is an example of an analysis that we run on a monthly basis to monitor that. Chartwell's submits to the business office a much more in-depth monthly operating statement, but this is something that allows us to simplify the data and just look at it as a whole. So we break down the year-to-date meals. Chartwell's is paid a fixed meal rate for every single meal served, so it does not matter the variety of entree or what components actually make up that meal. It's the same dollar amount that Chartwell's is being paid. And then we also include in this analysis our a la carte meals that's set with a conversion rate, so that's how we pay Chartwell's for any a la carte sales or adult meals that are served. Something to note that we also have fixed reimbursement rates throughout the district, and that helps us get a revenue on the program. It may be confusing to see several different schools listed under different reimbursement rates. So this is something known as severe need or non-severe need, and that is the government classifies schools within Those two categories based on their second year prior lunch participation. So for the 25-26 school year, these standings were determined based on your 22-23 lunch participation at each individual school. Something to note that is encouraging is your Chartwell's meal rate is less than both of these reimbursement rates. So for every reimbursable breakfast served at Lincoln, Sagandaga, or your middle school, you realize about a 50-cent profit back to your C fund. And as compared to a breakfast served at Glendale, Glenwarden, or the high school, you realize a little bit more than a 4-cent profit back to your C fund. And then your reimbursement rates at lunch, again, the Chartwell's meal rate is below that reimbursement rate, so the district is realizing a little over a 90-cent profit once paying Chartwell's for the meals served. And the combination of those funds is how we achieve the at least 40K guaranteed return. The 25-26 reimbursement rates, again, large bold letters, they are predictions. Those rates have not been released yet, but based on your May CPIU, we estimate that there'll be about a 3% increase, which is how the numbers at the bottom were generated. Point to note, your severe need versus non-severe need school standings can also alter, and we do not have a way to predict that until your CNMS profile is automatically updated at the start of the upcoming school year. So another part of our role here within the district as HMB consultants is to sit on your wellness committee meetings. We met several times throughout the school year, conversations focused on compliant fundraising, student feedback, and professional development days. Scott Stowell, your food service director from Chartwell's within the district, is working with some of his management and advertising team to develop a student survey to more effectively glean feedback that can be a virtual option. So scanning a QR code for students to just quickly fill out a survey as they go through the line. We really believe that having a litmus test of how your students are appreciating their meals, because again, if they're really not satisfied, they're not going to keep going through the line. But if it's okay, but it's free and it's easily available, we don't want them to just be okay with the meals that they're eating. We want them to think that they are grand, because we work very hard to make them as grand as possible. So having that feedback can really help us narrow in on what they'd like to see changed or areas that they really appreciate and maybe we should do more often. We also visit each one of your school buildings several times throughout the school year to make sure that the contract that we have between Chartwell's and the school district is being upheld to the fullest extent. We also complete self-reviews on behalf of the district to make sure that all of the SED requirements are fulfilled on a yearly basis. It's great to see your breakfast meals continue to be strong with your breakfast in the classroom format. So for those of you who don't know, your elementary schools are not served through the serving line in the beginning of the day. There's breakfasts that are delivered to the classroom immediately prior to the student's arrival, and then they can have a meal if they'd like, and all leftovers are returned back to the cafeteria so that waste is minimized, but then it's an easy, readily available option for students to start their day. One of the recommendations that we needed to see amended throughout this school year was that the portion sizes at the middle and high schools needed to be increased for some of your entrees. We have in the contract that some of our older children require more food, so a way to quantify that is there's portion servings that are unitized throughout different options, so it's not exactly by weight, but it's considered a meat or meat alternate unit. And we needed to increase those for some of our chicken tender meals, cheese stuffed breadsticks, that type of deal, where we do not want we don't want any students to go hungry, but especially our middle and high schools have a little bit more of a bigger appetite. So we wanted to see those adjustments made, and Mr. Stowell and his staff were very quick to do so. Staffing challenges continue to be present within the district. We were able to glean considerable interest in open positions. Unfortunately, retention of that staff was a little bit of a challenge this past school year as they'd complete the training process, but then not stick around for too long after that. So that's something that we are continuing to look at and consider options for the upcoming school year. But it was encouraging to see that when staffing wasn't as readily available, schools that needed more assistance were definitely prioritized, and it was managed in as effective way as possible, in my opinion. I also get so encouraged every time I come to this district because of the variety of the fresh produce that is seen throughout your serving lines. Again, there's daily minimums set by both the state and federal governments as well as our contract, but I was very encouraged to see that those minimums were almost always exceeded within the variety available to students. Fresh cucumbers, fresh peppers, just to name a few, going far beyond your carrots and celery. Not that we don't love carrots and celery. And then on a monthly basis, we renew Mr. Stowell's menus prior to publication to make sure that they agree with all of our contract requirements as well as the state and USDA minimums. Again, I mentioned the fresh produce. There is a contract monthly requirement that things such as cantaloupe or honeydew, pineapple have to be on your serving lines at least once per month, again, to supersede the what we would call bare minimum of fresh produce of apples, oranges, carrots, and celery. Mr. Jim Bigley would also like to speak to us a little bit more on the procurement piece, as I know that there have been some questions within the community as well as this board about ways to further our procurement with local foods within our Chartwell's contract.
Right, thank you. So Chartwell's, the school district 3 years ago rebid their contract, their child nutrition contract, and in doing that, Chartwell's was the successful bidder. Obviously, their meal rates are what you're paying right now on a daily and monthly basis. But in doing so, Chartwell's, they are a profit-making company. They have their obligation is to. Our obligation as the district was to bid the formal contract, which we did. Chartwell's, on the other hand, because they bid a certain meal rate, their obligation is to secure their lowest price from whoever they can procure their wares from, whether it's fresh produce from the Hudson Valley or whether it's local bakeries. That obligation is on Chartwell's, not necessarily a district. The district, if we were self-operated and didn't have a management company, would be a different story. You would have to do exactly that. You would have to go through either through BOCES and jump on their bid package, or do it yourself. You could identify certain areas yourself and bid that. But because we have a management company here, it's the onus is on the management company to secure their best price because their bid is not going to change. One of the things that they do have to adhere to is the Buy American aspect of things. When the education department comes in to do their what they call an administrative review every 5 years, they look for the Buy American. They go in the storeroom, they immediately look at tuna to make sure that the tuna fish is not purchased from Chile or some foreign country, and they are really hot to trot on that, as they say. So that obligation in any Iran divestment situation, they have to adhere to all that. But from our standpoint, we recommend, we advocate that they purchase local food from the Hudson Valley, as an example, or from the North Country with the orchards. But that obligation or that requirement is basically on them and not the school district.
And just to piggyback off of that for 1 second, we are exploring opportunities within other districts that have to rebid in upcoming years instead of, in the 27-28 school year, as ways to contractually obligate management companies such as Chartwell's to purchase more local foods, but that's not part of your current contract. And the verbiage on that is something very tricky because we cannot, it has to be a fixed meal rate from the get-go. It can't be, okay, if you do this, then we'll give you more money per meal. So that's, again, something that we're navigating and using other districts as guinea pigs. So hopefully come the 27-28 school year, we can get more conclusive verbiage to include in your contract so that becomes more of a priority. And then just a quick blurb on your communications piece. We recommended a couple of years ago through Mr. Bigley that a daily memo be established so that communication throughout all of your school buildings is as cohesive as possible, and that continues to be filled out and used on a daily basis, and that's something that has been very beneficial. So, in summary, I think very highly of your program. It is a pleasure to observe and offer feedback as well as highlight the very positive parts of it. I have seen all your your Chartwell's staff members within the district be very, very cordial in their interactions with students, as well as heard several very positive remarks in my time in your schools about, well, from staff members and aides about how wonderful the Chartwell staff has been and how hard they work and how great the food is. Again, we'd like to see more direct student feedback because as great as it is, my walking around the cafeterias and asking students what they'd like to see more of, I'm only here once a month, and we'd like to just keep those lines of communication as flowing as possible with the students directly because they are our end consumer. We at HB Consultants value our relationship and look forward to providing contract compliance oversight and a great 25-26 school year. And we'd be happy to take any questions from anyone in the room.
So I'm really excited that you want to hear from our students what they like and how it's going, and because we do get a lot of feedback from our own kids. But a QR code isn't going to work anymore during lunchtime because we have no cell phone policy.
Excellent point. Okay.
So I would say we could partner maybe with our student on the board and see what their feedback would be to best reach our students, so that our students feel comfortable to be able to fill something out and do the best that we can possibly get. But we do have a new student board member who might have some feedback for that.
They also have Chromebooks.
Right.
Google Forms.
Okay. So if they can do a Google form or something during the morning, whatever you think is best for the students, and we'll refer to you on that because we are adults and not kids.
Well, Mike, do you have any input you'd like to share now from your experience with the food?
I feel like I could absolutely say that I haven't seen people saying, this is gross, this is terrible. I've almost never seen people at tables with, half-eaten or fully left meals. I don't really pay attention to it because this is a new position for me, but when it comes to something like a survey, like a Google form on a Chromebook, I think that would be easy enough to organize and then be able to submit to you guys for further review.
Even if we did old school as like a comment or suggestion box, do you think that's something that you or your peers would actually drop a slip in there, or
Absolutely.
Kind of
If
pass by?
I had to walk around with a clipboard and write down responses, I'd be able to figure that out.
Okay.
Nice.
I had a couple questions.
Yep, go ahead.
So I just asked Drew how many students we had last year, and he said about 2,100. So it looks like we're missing about 900 kids on lunches. Have we done any sort of surveys or studies to find why that is? I mean, I know some families are just like, I'm bringing no matter what. I feel like that, and I get that. But is there a way to find out how we're missing 900 kids?
In my experience, there is a growing concern with allergens and dietary restrictions. Even personally, I greatly limit where I eat because of cross-contamination concerns. So with that being taken into account, I think a lot of our families that I've spoken to directly do not know that we have dietary safe accommodations readily available. Unfortunately, a lot of them are upon request. So if you're not asking for it on a daily basis, it's not going to be prepared if you walk through the line at lunchtime and say, oh yeah, by the way, I'm gluten and dairy free and also follow halal practices. So again, we would source those items on a readily available basis, but there needs to be that communication up front that unfortunately that knowledge of simply stating it on the website, a lot of families aren't actually aware of that, even if it's stated in parent letters or whatnot. Again, just from my personal conversations that I've had with families within the Scotia-Glenville School District, sometimes that's not being received. So that could account for a small or large amount of those meals. And then, unfortunately, we do have a very negative connotation when it comes to school meals. I think it's very, very outdated, but mystery meat, slop, gross are things that come to mind when you think of school meals for people that aren't actually consuming the food or seeing it on a day-to-day basis. And if you're not giving it a try, I've always brought my lunch from home. Why would I do anything different? So with the shift to free meals, we did see the percentages increase again, but unfortunately, I think to summarize, it would just be a lack of knowledge and awareness of what we're actually offering.
Maybe we need to do some sort of announcement. Hey, just a reminder, breakfast and lunches are free, and these are all the things, like the fact with allergens and all of that. Maybe we could put something together and put it on Parent Square, put it on Facebook. Maybe that would.
I wasn't aware we had hello, so.
I wasn't either, so a lot of what you just said now was new to me. My son says fried chicken's amazing. He does like that. So,
And if you ask, we hear a lot of those comments from our students that are actually eating the school meals. I will ask students that don't readily participate, and I will quickly hear school food is gross. And then I say, oh, okay, like, can you give me an example of which entree you've tried and disliked? Or what particular about the food do you think is gross? Oh, well, I don't really know. I haven't tried it in a while. But when I was in elementary school, I had this one meal and I didn't like it. And it's like, okay, so if I could just persuade you to try again, I think would go a long way. But
We also can ask Charles to do a little bit more sampling. Why not sample something out? Let's say on a Monday, and then maybe 2-3 weeks thereafter, or the next month, have it on the menu. As an example, vegetarian chili. Why not put that out as a sample, a little soufflé up, no charge. Then the next month it's on the menu, and you see what the participation is done. So things like that, and more than just veggie chili, all sorts of samples they can do.
then I wanted to ask about the breakfast meals that go to the classrooms in the elementary level, because I want to compare it with what's going on at the middle school. Do you give warm breakfast to the classroom, for the classrooms?
there's 2 entrees available every single day, a warm breakfast entree, and then a cereal, I believe, is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I want to say muffin, yes, on Tuesday, Thursday. There's some variety there in terms of what the shelf-stable entree is. So a warm entree is available on a daily basis, and it's, again, prepared in the hot box and then delivered at the classrooms as soon as the student's arrival, as close to the student's arrival as possible, to make sure that temperatures are appropriately handled.
Right. Is there a reason that we're dividing up the 6th graders from the 7th and the 8th so they're not able to have the access to the warm as much?
I know that the 6th graders start their day, I believe, in the auditorium, and the 7th and 8th graders are, maybe it's switched, but they have the kids separated, which I think is why they separate the breakfasts.
Right.
Maybe they don't want those kids intermingling before the start of the school day. I can't give you a solid answer, though. We'd have to ask Mr. Cosmer.
Okay. And then you were saying that there's staffing challenges with retention. Has there been any sort of survey or something to find out why it's a problem to retain folks? Exit survey, or we do those at work?
That's a better,
Go ahead.
That's a better Scott question. I can give you what the feedback that I've heard from fellow staff members that continue to stay on, but I have not heard it from the horse's mouth, so I hesitate to repeat what I have heard.
So we're not Chartwell's employees.
Right, no, I know.
So-
But I didn't know if, as a part of what you all were doing, if that was questions you asked them as to what's going on.
A lot of it is the salary, the hourly wage. The market is what the market is. You can go elsewhere and make a little bit more money. However, Monday through Friday job with no weekends and no holidays is very enticing to parents and children in the district, very enticing. And they need to go after that segment of the workforce. So hopefully that will increase the employees here. I think once the management company, Chartwell's, that's locked into, as we talked about, the meal rate, and they are going to get the CPIU increase, which this year was 3.4%. They're going to pass that, hopefully going to pass a fair amount of that on to the staffing. But still, if you're making a certain level, 3% of a lower number is not that big of a number when you look at the outside, the Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's and various other places. Their wages may be a little bit higher, so it's a challenge. Next bid season, 2 years from now, we can dictate what those wages can be in each building. So that's on a rebid. We can't do it within that 5-year term. We can't do it, but once that 5-year term is up, we can dictate exactly what those wages, hourly wages, can and should be.
And last question, I have a high school student, and I've heard from other high school students that the later period, and Michael, maybe you can confirm or deny this, later period that you have lunch, there's less offered. And I understand, supply and demand and not wanting to make too much and all of that, but has there been any discussions with Chartwell about making sure that our kids at the end of the day for lunch are getting the same opportunities as those who are earlier in the day? And
Yes.
same quality?
So we have a clause in the contract currently that says the last student served through the line is entitled to the same variety and quality of food as the first student served. You hit the nail on the head with in terms of supply and demand. Earlier in the school year, this was a point that needed to be addressed of, the variety significantly lessening come the last lunch period, particularly at the high school, just because they weren't sure how the meal participation would fluctuate, and so they didn't have the inventory on hand to even prep it that day. That was quickly mitigated from my experience looking over their production records and everything. I can assure you that there are now leftovers of every single entree come the end of that last lunch period to ensure that every student who comes through the line is offered the same variety. As far as the quality, again, they should be batch cooking throughout the day. On my observations, they were doing that, so food was as fresh as possible. If you're waiting until the last 5 minutes of your 25-minute lunch period, it's been under the heat lamp for 20 minutes, therefore. So with that being said, I have seen in older students, there is a tendency to not want to wait in line, so they'll wait until the line dies down and then run through at the end of their lunch period. I would encourage them to not do that so that the meal is as fresh as possible, but again, that's something that we can't mitigate as, adults that aren't students. But we do we do our best to ensure that Chartwell's is on top of making sure the variety is available throughout every serving period.
Thank you.
One of the things that I keep hearing from my grandson and his friends is that there's not enough time at lunch. By the time they get through the line and get their food, there's just not enough time to sit down and eat their food without gulping it down. And they won't gulp it down, so they don't get lunches because they
What
say
grade
they
levels?
don't
Can
have
I ask what grade
high
levels?
school, and it was the same thing in middle school.
So we do have a strong emphasis on grab-and-go entrees at both the high school and the middle school because, I keep motioning behind me. You can't see, but the serving line is right behind us, and there is some limitations in terms of space. So moving students through the line as quickly as possible. There's only 2 serving lines, and it is a little bit of a tight squeeze in there. So prioritizing grab-and-go entrees as often as possible, but unfortunately that minimizes the customization of meals that we can offer, which I think really enhances the quality that we offer. So it's that delicate balance of there's an ample supply of grab-and-go things, but if you would like, for instance, at the high school, a custom made-to-order deli sandwich, you're going to have to wait a little bit while that's constructed and then, handed on through the line so that you can get that meal. In terms of time to eat, when we have tracked the time that the last student was through the line, the last student served a reimbursable meal, so that if they're running up through for snacks, we don't count that because snacks are not your meal. We want you to eat your meal first before you go buy a bag of chips. But they all did have a minimum of 8 minutes, which is what we consider the industry standard. And while that
My grandson has never eaten a meal in 8 minutes.
and that is the nail on the head of that's if you're eating diligently instead of having a million conversations. And again, that's that balance of this is their social time and we don't want to take that away from them. But at the end of the day, there's not time in the school day to give every meal period 45 minutes to eat their food, then converse with their friends, that type of deal. So it's a delicate balance that, Chartwell's doesn't have a direct influence. The school district determines the timing for the meal periods. All that Chartwell's can do is try to make sure we offer a variety of grab and go as well as those customization pieces.
And properly staffed would assist that too. If you're not properly staffed, it will slow the line down for sure. So getting properly staffed is critically important.
They probably have some more time this year since they can't play on their cell phones around.
Right. Well said.
That might also help.
Well
So we'll
said.
see. We'll see about that.
Absolutely.
Leftovers. What do y'all do with leftovers?
So if it's something that is refrigerated and that temperature has been maintained, it can be kept in the fridge and offered a second day. Unfortunately, waste is a problem. in our country as well as in this district. We are not able to give away second meals for free. Students can purchase those. There is some wiggle room in terms of second breakfast if warm entrees have been prepped and things like that. But it's a delicate line to walk there in terms of what is compliant versus otherwise. So there, you try to look at your previous day's production records or the time that that entree was last offered, as well as, I always, and people chuckle at me when I say this, but I think the weather plays a part of it as well. You know, if you have a really hot morning, like your cold breakfast entrees, one of my districts offers smoothies. Those smoothies go through the roof when it's a hot day outside. When it's a cold day, everyone wants a warm entree, you know? So taking a look at what the weather is also will help you be as prepared as possible. I always say to overshoot your production so you have at least 5 leftovers per entree. But again, if they're already warmed, we cannot offer those a second day in terms of just health concerns. So they are tossed, unfortunately. And we can't legally donate them somewhere because if those temperatures are not maintained,
Right.
you know, then Chartwell's is liable for any health-related illnesses that result of that.
Thank you.
If it may also be mentioned, I know we moved past the conversation, but timing-wise, I noticed throughout the school year that cleanup time afterwards was also encouraged up to 5-7 minutes before the period ends. So my 7th period lunch ended at, I believe, somewhere around 12:59, and we were being encouraged to get rid of waste, get out the cafeteria by like 12:52 or something like that. So it may be worth considering, if time is a big concern here, to shorten that period where students are encouraged to get rid of waste and exit the cafeteria.
Excellent, good point.
Great point.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I appreciate you guys answering my questions. We really appreciate your staff out there. I know that it sounds like they're struggling at times to get be fully staffed, so we really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks so much. Thank you very, very much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very much.
you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You don't want to take on the cards?
All right, moving on in our agenda. We'll get to item number 6. I know there's some discussion about that, so we'll do our normal process here. So if I get a motion, please, item number 6, to adopt the charge for the Reimagining Our School Committee.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the charge for the reimagining of our schools committee.
Thanks, Chet. In a second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Kimmy. All right, questions? Kim?
Yes, I had some concerns with it as it's written. It's, for the most part, I liked it. I did, but there was a couple things I feel like need to be included that weren't. With respect to how the committee is chosen, once the applications are in, I think that there needs to be a discussion on that, how we want to do that process, and I think that should be included in the charge. Who will be involved in making that determination, how they will be evaluated. I do think the board should be involved in that process. I also think we should include the charge that provided a status update at each of the board meetings, so we can monitor where the committee is. I thought Susan had mentioned last time that we would also be getting a timeline with respect to things that will be done, but I didn't see that we got one, and I think there should be a timeline. And correlating with that, it says in the charge that the committee will do their work in one school year, but I think we need to designate a timing with respect to a decision being made versus how we end up implementing that decision, because I think we need to have an answer as to where we're heading by January, because what happens on this committee is going to significantly affect what we do in the budget. And we really start working on that budget early February. So I think we need to have something in the charge along with the timeline saying, final determinations will be made by such and such date. For me personally, I think January, and then implementing that would take the rest of the school year.
Right,
So that was the thoughts I had with the charge.
okay. John?
Yeah, definitely shared those. As far as the information that we're putting out, I know they said on the website, but I'd really like for that to be redundant, put it out on every vehicle we have, whether it be Facebook, the website, Parent Square, just to make sure we're getting it out there and doing our due diligence to make sure the information's known. Go back to what I had. I think that was everything.
I think we should mention it at the parent nights too.
Yeah.
Because, not everybody checks their email or looks at the Parent Square, so if we're mentioning it at parent nights,
That's great.
especially in the upper levels too, that they'll hear it.
Yep.
But Kimmy, isn't that too late
Well, I was gonna say, I believe the email or the status is by Labor Day, right?
by Labor Day?
Oh, it's
So I
not
think
Labor Day, I
it
thought you were
gives-
thinking by January. All right.
Right, so it gives a week notice, right, to be out there,
You're all right.
right? And I know Susan had responded to some of the emails, but obviously not public about the timeline and things like that. So we'll, what other questions do we have for comments about this before
Can we comment on the timeline publicly so
Absolutely.
folks can?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we don't know, yeah, from what
Okay.
Susan said today. Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
can pull it up.
Yeah.
No pressure.
That's right, and I think she did, and I think in the email that she sent to us, she did comment on that question about the timing of that it was by December, and then the rest of the school year to actually implement everything.
Right,
That
but
was
I
good.
think we
Right.
need to have that in the charge.
Yeah,
And I think
no,
there
I
needs to
agree.
be a timeline
Yep,
in the
I agree.
charge. I totally was fine with the things that she had suggested. I just think it needs to be in the charge itself. So
Yeah, I
as
agree.
it stands today, I won't be voting for it.
Right. Well, and I think it was mentioned too, that's why I wanted the discussion that we should just table this until 2 weeks from now, until we can get this information taken care of and put in the charge, correct, so we can bring that.
Is there any way that we could preemptively take applications? Because I'm looking at losing 2 weeks, and it's already tighter than I'd like for it to have been. I know the budget affected a lot of that. Is there any way that we could start taking applications in lieu of approving this? Because that's going to put us into mid-August almost.
Yeah.
So it's really going to shorten.
We could amend this to say we adopt this with timeline added. We can put that right into the motion and basically say the timeline has to be in.
But it's not, for me, it's not just about the timeline. It's the process for determining who's going to be on the committee. I think we could do a separate motion to have the forms put out.
I thought it was said that was supposed to be out today.
I thought it was going to be out today
tonight?
too.
No?
No, we're working on the website right now.
Okay.
There's a whole website that we're gonna have a whole platform just for that on the website.
Oh, it's
so
on separate
people
page.
on,
Awesome.
Okay.
And then at that point, they'll have a link to the form to apply.
And do we know when that's going out? Or? No.
I don't know the exact time.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think the
We're starting.
form should be stopped because we're still working on the charge. I still think we need to have people apply to be on the committee.
Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Didn't she say that? I think Susan said that.
She did.
Yeah.
Right,
We're still turning no matter what happens tonight.
correct, right.
Because no matter what, we're going to have a committee. It's just how we're
Yeah.
going to do the charge for it. So I agree we should get that form out immediately.
Yeah, and it sounds like it will be as soon as the page is available on our website.
Awesome.
Right.
I'm looking forward to seeing that page. That's
We
great.
have full confidence in Megan.
No? Not Megan?
Not Megan, okay, sorry. Sorry, Megan. My confidence is in you, though. but- All right.
So hopefully that'll be out, and then we can just, we're gonna approve to get those going, so we can get those in, and then hold on the charge until.
Well, I think the bigger thing, but thank you, is that the board involvement on the committee and who's going to pick it should be a discussion we have with Susan as president. That's my 2 cents.
Agreed.
Right.
So I personally wouldn't feel comfortable putting an amendment on this until we have that discussion about who's going to be involved in picking the committee members, if that makes sense.
Right, so
I think that makes
applications
perfect sense.
Should we, one of us be, I mentioned that each of us be a part of a subcommittee.
Correct.
Whoever wants to do it, everyone, no. Or-
Yeah, and I think that's a good idea, that one of us is on each one of those subcommittees, and then
Yeah.
one or two of us are on the main committee, absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
I
Yeah,
think the reporting back a lot easier too.
correct. All right, so in this case, we'll have an agreement to go around the room to table this until 2 weeks.
Yes.
Okay, so item number 6 is tabled.
Yes.
I took some detailed notes. We'll recap with Susan via email with everybody. All right, and then we'll get that item 6 in 2 weeks from now on our agenda. All right, anything else on that one before we move on? All right, if I can get a motion, please, for item number 7.
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the final AS7 contract for 2024-2025 BOCES services and preliminary AS7 contract for 2025-2026.
Thank you, Jen. Second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Pam. Questions?
For me, the timing of this I thought was interesting because, as I sent to everybody, there was an article this week, and I also looked at the actual report itself that the New York State Office of State Controller did an audit of our particular capital region BOCES, and it found approximately $2 million that BOCES was overpaid, and in turn the schools within were overpaid. And I believe, and Drew, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going to ask you questions about it, that Scotia-Glenville is one of the districts that received money stemming from that. So my question to you, Drew, is how, if at all, is that going to affect us?
So in January, the superintendent of BOCES had a conference call with the superintendents. And then on January 31st, they provided a document to each of the 23 school districts, how they'd be affected. So Scotia-Glenville had a reduction of what they call surplus. If you remember the third projection, I showed $397,000 of BOCES surplus for prior year. It would have been $73,000 more, but they took that out of our refund from prior year expenditures. So that was our give back for their accounting error. We only budget 30 in that category for that purpose because you never know what's going to happen. So we weren't adversely affected in our financials to what we expected, but they did take the money back. They took it back in March, and they notified us in January of this.
So you said there was about $73,000 that we had to give back? Okay.
They took it out of our check, basically. It would have been a bigger check, a bigger refund.
Do you know if they're double checking everything else so that this doesn't happen
They
again?
assured us it wouldn't affect me going forward. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. If I get a motion, please, on item number 8.
I'll motion to adopt the Scotia-Glenville Central School 2025-2026 student cell phone policy.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thanks, Chad. As we open up questions, comments, Mike, any input from yourself or your peers on this?
I couldn't say anything for my peers just yet, but I am someone who has a 504 who would like to have my cell phone on me at all times, and if I could kind of represent people in a similar boat, what kind of processes are we looking at for people with 504s who would like to have their cell phones readily available all throughout the day?
All right, very good.
So we'll work with the principals on a process that they'll communicate with their students and families. So if they are looking for an exemption, they would go through their building principal, and that's how they would. It'd be something like almost like a pass.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay,
Good point.
thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments?
Do we circle back to the younger, or just, would they say, as I said, they can't give it like 15, 20, whatever it is, they gotta give it like a big.
Yeah, they said they wouldn't support a pilot, so we kind of stopped the conversation at that.
Okay.
If nothing else, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. I get a motion, please, on item number 9.
Make a motion to adopt 25-26 school breakfast and lunch meal price list.
Thank you, Carter. A second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Kim. Questions or comments on this? No. If not, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. Excuse me. We can do 10, 11, and 12 if we'd like to, which is continuation of existing mergers for our ice hockey, wrestling, and boys and girls varsity swimming.
I'll motion to approve the continuation of our existing ice hockey program merger, our existing girls wrestling merger, and the existing boys and girls varsity swim program merger.
Thank you. And a second.
Second.
Thanks, Jen. Anyone have any questions or comments on this? No? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. And motion on communications, please.
I'll move communications A and B, staffing 1 through 13, and the placement of students with disabilities as submitted.
Thank you, Pam.
I'll second.
Thank you. Questions, comments on any of that?
I had a question with respect to 13A. So unfortunately for us, but we're losing a third grade teacher. Or what are we doing to make sure we get that back?
We reposted for it already.
Already?
Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. Routine business. Anyone have any questions about the internal claims, auditor's report, warrants, or warrant report exceptions? So moved. Item number C, please. If I could get a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the July 14th, 25 regular meeting as well as the reorg meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes from the July 14th, 2025 annual organizational meeting and the July 14th, 2025 regular meeting.
Thank you, Chad. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Chad. Any questions or comments on that? Corrections? Oh,
I'm
none? Oops,
abstaining.
sorry. Yes, ma'am. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Abstain. Just say aye.
Pam abstains.
Aye.
All right. Welcome back. Questions on the treasury report for June 2025? All right. Moving on to other business. We have one on our agenda, which is to talk about the 25-26 BOE meeting dates. The one thing, Kathy, that was pointed out when we were chatting earlier was on the website. It shows we have 2 August meetings. That was brought up by Pam said she on the website. I believe Chad mentioned it as well. And then on our sheet, as we normally don't have 2 August meetings, so that would be open for discussion.
I think Chad said it was on Parents for also, right?
Yeah, I poured over the calendar.
On the
my
calendar.
phone, so.
Last year it was on that extended part of it, and this year, I mean, she scheduled it, we said no.
Okay.
That day.
All right, so we'll just have to make sure we double check the dates to that second meeting, and then that would be just the open discussion. If historically, at least the previous 7 years, we haven't had a second meeting in August since it's so close right to school, and school starts the 4th this year. But that could be easily a discussion to chat about, obviously with Susan as well too, to have that meeting if we feel that we need that meeting. I know last year was a little bit of how do I say that politely, mess with some of the hiring that we did or we didn't do, which created a little bit of a confusion for us at the end of summer into September. But chatting with Susan and Kathy and everybody, we're well ahead of where we need to be as far as our hiring this year compared to last year. Our athletic department's done a fantastic job to get the majority of our coaches on board already, which was a little concern last year. So that's an open discussion if we feel we need to have that.
My feeling is, I mean, we have such a finite amount of time that we can accomplish things both here and in executive session. So I know last year was a different animal than what we're looking at this year, but that's my main concern. So if we feel that we can achieve this and push into September cleanly with no kind of hiccups, I would be okay with it. But
Okay.
I still see us, we just don't have many opportunities to get in and work. So even if it's a short in and out meeting, it could be worth the time.
Okay.
maybe discuss our next meeting, kind of see where we
Yep,
are.
I'm making
where we're
notes.
at.
Recap for Susan, and then, I'm sure she's watching right now, so.
Well, we'll see at August 11th meeting, see where we're at, if we need it, meeting in the end of August or not.
All right, so we'll recap tonight's meeting and an email with everybody, and then I'll bring that question up, and then we can discuss it, if that's all right with
Yeah, I
everybody.
agree. Like, see, we're at August 11th, because something could come up that we're gonna need to have that or not.
Great, okay. The other thing I had in other business is some internal discussion, which we had, which I wanted to bring up tonight anyway, was for the board to start to think about our goals for the 25-26 school year. I'd like to talk about them generically at our next meeting. So if we all take a couple of weeks to kind of think about a couple of things that we would want to set for goals. There was a lot last year that we talked about. And I think we had some pretty good ideas last year going forward into this year, so if we can kind of formalize that and just have an open discussion. I'll ask Susan and Kathy maybe to put that on the agenda for us for the 11th, so the board can have a discussion about our goals. Right. That
If we
works for
want,
everybody?
I'm already working on a Google Doc for my own. I
Beautiful.
mean, that's something I could share out, and we could just
Absolutely.
kind of dump in and work on collectively
I
what
think
we've
that
got.
was really helpful last year when you started that for us, so
Yeah.
thank you. So I
Absolutely.
think
I'll
that's
share it
a
out.
great idea.
It's already got my mess on there, so feel free to add, edit, whatever.
Excellent, thank you. Michael, anything that you'd think about too as a goal you'd like to see that we work on, by all means, we'll include you in that Google Doc as well, so you can see what we're talking about and then add your comments.
Absolutely.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone have any other business?
I had a few things.
Sure.
One, I was talking about one article this week. I also saw another article about Lowe's. So I asked Drew if he wouldn't mind taking a few moments explaining to us what effect Lowe's tax dispute has on us, if any. And you were kind enough to give us documents, and maybe you could explain it all to us.
Sure.
Thank you.
So provided to the board a historical look at Lowe's. They had two tax certs that have been settled in 2017. They appealed in 2018. You can see that both reductions were significantly less than what they requested. They now have two served known certiorari's, 2023 and 24, which are still pending. And then we have not received formally, but it was in the paper, the 2025, hence the footnote that this is what I got out of the paper. So if they were successful with a $2.1 million reduction, it'd be $52,886 reduction on the tax rolls, which would be $6.07 impact to a $160,000 home, or $7.59 to a $200,000 home. But again, you can see they have two other ones on top of this, so that would just kind of compound it. We are reserved for the 23 and 24 maximum settlement, and I will be coming to the board probably before we close the books, probably in August, for put that 52 in the reserve, so that we have the money set aside, so it doesn't impact annual operations. That's what the reserve is for. The reserve is audited every year by West to make sure it's in compliance and it's reasonably funded, and then reports to the audit committee on such. So we do work in collaboration with the town of Glenville. We share the cost of outside appraisals. So when these come about, they will hire an outside appraiser to see if this is reasonable, and it gives them, because they have the legs in the game, we don't, but we share the cost with them on the appraisals, and I budget for that. So we've been successful in mitigating the max throughout, but you never know.
Thank you for putting this fact sheet together for us. Is it possible to put it on the page with the agenda so we can add that, Kathy? So if people want to see that, and I appreciate you taking the time doing that, Drew. So I know it's not necessarily anticipated, even though it seems like they contest almost every year. You make sure that we've got, I know people don't like when I use this word, but a cushion to handle if something comes up like this.
So when it settles, obviously in our favor, I present that whenever there's a settlement. I give you an attached spreadsheet with the resolution. You notice the last two budget years we used $150,000 excess in the reserve in lieu of raising taxes, and for 25-26 we're using $165,000. So when there's positivity, if that's a word, we bring it back to the taxpayers that way.
Okay, great, I appreciate that. Unless, did anybody else have questions on this before I move my other things? Okay.
Would, I think laws we, I don't know if it makes sense or not, but if they do get reduction, would it be worth talking to them by pilots or no?
They're on the tax rules. They've been around for now, for what, 12, 13 years, so their pilot's gone. Walmart did the same thing. They file tax certs, then they freeze when they settle, they say they can't grieve for so many years, and then they'll grieve again when that's up. And it's private sector, they're out to make money. GE did it to Shelmont and everybody, you know that story. So.
Thank you.
Then I just had a couple other little things. Rick, maybe this is something you can answer. I don't know, and I apologize. It came to my attention that NYSID has made like teacher evaluation changes, and I was wondering, is that have we figured out a process yet on it to how that's going to be handled? And
it's a great question. We have a committee that's going to work throughout the school year to develop a new evaluation plan. It's called STEPS instead of APPR. So we've got that committee already meeting.
Will we be able to get will we get a report from that group to explain what's going to be? Okay.
Yeah.
Who's incorporated in the committee?
It's teachers and administrators.
Oh, great.
Yep.
Good. And then this is a senior parent, or former senior parent. Somebody took a lot of pictures. I think it was it Julie maybe, in front of the backdrop after you walk down off the stage, and somebody's asking, are they going to be put on Facebook? Or are they going to, because a lot of parents want those pictures from that senior day. If maybe they could be posted somewhere, I don't know. So parents have access to it. It was a great idea doing that, and they would love to have their kids.
I can ask Julia to see if she has those.
Okay, thank you. That was it for me. Thanks.
I had a question for Kim. I don't know if she's heard anything. So there was an article that came out, I was just trying to pull it up, about the changing in regions. Have you heard anything from legislation that how that's looking? It says like a 2-year out that they're going to be different, but
yeah, it's not. I mean, it was funny. I was actually talking to Susan about that the other day, just generally speaking, because I noticed the same article, but I haven't heard anything beyond what was in those articles about it. To me, it seemed very, very general, with not a lot of specifics. So I'm hoping they come out with those specifics soon. And Susan had the same impression. And not that I'm speaking for Susan, she's more than welcome to tell me I'm wrong, but
just changes a pathway for certain
yes,
things. Yes. Only 2 years out, it's going to be here before you know it.
Right, yeah, I agree.
That's all I have.
All right. Anyone else have any other business? All right, if not, I will open up the second hearing privilege of the floor. At this time, if anybody would like to address the board, please just state your name, address, and you have 5 minutes. Hi.
Christina Darkangelo Wood. I live on Riverside out of Nova Scotia. I'm also a teacher here in the district. I do have 2 just comments, questions. I know that you may or may not be able to answer them. So just understand when I'm just asking general questions.
Sure.
The first one is concerning the Reimagining Committee, which is a huge, enormous task, understanding that. And I'm just looking for some clarification on the charter, plan, timeline, that the role of the committee is to make recommendations to the board and the superintendent. That's my understanding. And you're asking people to volunteer for these committees, but really it's unclear as to what type of time commitment would be necessity to serve on this committee or committees, mini committees. When will these meetings happen? Will they be during the day? Will they be in the evening? How often are they going to happen? These are just questions that I'm coming up with sitting here, because if the committee needs to come up with a clear recommendation by the end of the year, January, December, that sounds like a really super tight timeline if you're having meetings monthly. So that was my first kind of thoughts, just as someone who would want to participate. These are things that I would need to know so that I could pick the right committee or the right group to be on. If I can't commit to once a week for 2 hours every week, I just would need to know that before I threw my hat in the ring. The other thing is, I know that we're on time, our timeline for the cell phone policy, and I do know this is going to be a huge change. I am a teacher at the high school, so looking for when we're going to have clear implementation. I know that we're working with the Code of Conduct Committee, but the clear communication of that process, how it's going to work, would sooner rather than later would be an excellent thing, just a suggestion. So, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no one else that would wish to approach the board, then I will close the second hearing privilege of the floor, and I will ask for a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstained? So moved. Thank you all. I'll get those for you. We'll see you in 2 weeks.